Hey everybody, this is Perch. And this is another viewer question here. And the question is basically, can you tell when somebody is just done, when they're only doing comics or going through the motions? Well, it's kind of a weird question because I also, it kind of answers itself. Yes, yes, you can. Look, this channel has been kind of an emotional roller coaster lately for a lot of people. You tune in and you're hearing about what a lot of people took as a very inspirational message about imposter syndrome, that everybody has it and it's not unusual. And then we follow up a couple hours later with, hey, maybe there's not enough money in comics to actually make it a profession for anyone. And, and if I read the comments, anymore, I'm sure I would see lots of good things from it, but I'm just kidding. I do read the comments, although some days, just being honest, it's a bit of a grind. This question is interesting because I think there's a lot of examples of this. Look, comics, one of the reasons why, and I someday I'll do like a top 5 video of like the most misunderstood things I've ever said. One of the ones that's rocketing to the top, if not at the top, is that I do believe comics should have more money in them. I think people should be paid more. Now, a lot of people have conflated that with socialism, and no, I'm not saying you just hand out free money. I'm just saying if you want a lot of the ills, a lot of the problems in comics to go away, you need to make it a more financially attractive place for people to go. But I also recognize money doesn't just grow on trees, and the big companies, they're not going to just treat this as a charity. In fact, one of the, most common bedrock natures of capitalism is if you can get it done for cheaper and still maintain more or less the same profit, same incoming money, you do it. You get more profit that way. And comics are going to chase that dragon for quite a long time. But just as an abstract, if there was more money in comics, it would be healthier. And I think by the same token, because there's not a lot of money in comics, it allows a lot of people to kind of just ignore a lot of the ills, a lot of the problems that go on. I mean, I can go on Twitter right now and I can see literally the editor for DC's Black Label complaining about the little chime that goes off when email, and that he shouts fuck every time the chime goes off. This is the same guy who, ate a pizza until he vomited at one point. So, I mean, this is what you get when, it's a fairly low income profession. Because it turns out if you go to high level Wall Street firms, or you go check out Pfizer, or you go look at Microsoft, you don't see as much of this. You see some. I mean, generally people get more expensive drugs there. Cocaine's you can't afford cocaine on a comic editor salary. Are you kidding me? But there's definitely been cases, I think, where you pick up a comic book and it's clear the person is just going through the motions. At least, and sometimes it's hard as the reader. Maybe it just feels uninspired to you, but the person is actually putting out some of kind of their most amazing, best work, but it just doesn't read that way. I think that let's see, what's a current example I can point to. I don't know. I think if you were reading Iron Man when Dan Slott was on it, it felt like, as an outside observer, that Dan Slott just kind of grew tired of that book, kind of a couple issues into it. It's like he got winded early, no jokes. And it just, you read some of those issues and it was like, again, it felt like going through the motion. I got the same kind of feeling from Jason Aaron's Thor run toward the end of it. After Odin's son came back and he was, getting magical hammers created by dwarves that could just be sent to him via teleportation or something. Remember that whole storyline? That didn't feel right. I think that, I don't know. I think that some of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America seemed to get winded early on too. I couldn't tell where that was going. And I'm not sure he knew either. It was just putting the stuff out. I think that happens. I think that, certainly you get kind of lazier art over time. Again, you never know what's going on with these people, but when John Romita Jr. was doing some of his DC work for Superman, it did. There, some of those later issues also felt like it was just like, how fast can I get this page turned back? Now, granted, we don't know if he had a tight deadline, if he was being asked to redraw it for the 50th time. I mean, who knows what was going on? We don't know if Bendis' script was late, probably was, and he was crunched. I mean, who knows? But you do get these moments where it just feels like nobody's really inspired. Nobody's really terribly interested in what they're doing. I think that definitely is the case. I think that with editorial, and again, I'm guessing here, but from the outside looking in, it feels like almost a different problem, like especially at DC, that so many people were laid off, that the editorial department was so cut, and people were having to do more books than is really reasonable for the job, and certainly for the pay, but also just for the job, even paid really, really well. You shouldn't be editing, I heard somebody was editing 18 books. That's not going to work. You're going to put in, half-assed effort. But I do think that there's probably a case where some of the people just started phoning it in, because I think that's one of the, there's a meme. It's never push a loyal person to the point where they stop giving a fuck. And that's what some of this stuff has felt like. It feels like there's people who are probably good at their jobs, or at least have the potential to be good at their jobs. And then you just load it and load it and load it and load it. And eventually it's like, you know what? I want to go home and watch Netflix. So just let's churn this stuff out. Now, nobody likes to hear that. I think if you ever go up to your manager, even if you're horribly overworked, and go, hey, I'm so burnt out, I just don't care what I do anymore, they're not going to look at you and go, oh wow, thanks for letting me know this. Thanks for letting me know. I'm definitely going to help solve the problem. They're going to resent you, because nobody wants to hear the words "I don't care anymore" in a job. But I think that that's certainly where some stuff's at. Absolutely. I think that if you, I think, reading between the lines, I think that there's a decent amount of writers who do not particularly want to be at Marvel and DC. That's not where that's not where they wanted to find themselves. Those aren't the characters they care about. I think they see kind of some of their peers maybe moving faster, getting off the platform, getting a bonus. No, the $600,000 on Substack that Rich Johnston keeps pushing around is absurd. But sure, I think that there's definitely a sense that these aren't my characters. These aren't my comics. Editorial wants me to kind of, tie into 18 other events I don't care about. Somebody who I think admitted to hitting this kind of burnout kind of mode was Peter David, where when he was working on X Factor originally, and they kept making him cross over with other series and tie his books in, and he was constantly getting things interrupted. He just hit a point of like, you know what? This isn't any good. I'm phoning it in. And it's something to avoid in comics for sure, because I think everybody can see it happening. The problem with comics, as opposed to maybe other jobs, I mean, God help us all, if you're a doctor and you don't care anymore, I mean, you can kind of phone it in and nobody's really going to notice. You're just going to, you're not going to be as precise with that surgery or whatever you happen to be doing. I mean, they'll notice and that you're killing people. But with comics, you put out this kind of uninspired work, and the page feels flat and lifeless. The story feels like the same kind of thing over and over and over again. I definitely understand, and I hear the X Office, that they talk about they have a really great place, and it's community, and it's a family, and everything else. They've got the X Slack and all the rest. But a lot of the work feels like just spinning wheels. It feels like, nobody's really inspired to do anything. So I don't know. I mean, not to be a downer with it, but I think we'll call truth as truth. Yeah, I think you can definitely tell when somebody's just not into it. And I think there's, that you can tell when somebody is. Sometimes the work just blows right off the page. You read a really inspired, incredible comic book, you can tell that the writer's having a great time. You can tell the artist is forging new ground and having enjoying what they're doing. You can even tell when an editor is managing a lineup that just feels vibrant and exciting. Like it's a great feeling. And I think more than anything else, well, I don't know, but more than almost anything else, comics that feel like the people are invested and excited and anxious for you to get this book, and not that they're just phoning it in for a deadline, those always rise to the top. Some of the reason why I think that what King in Black was well received, and it did have this feeling like the people involved were having a good time. It didn't feel like they were phoning it in. So I think it is a factor to comics for sure. But can you tell when somebody's uninspired? Yeah, I think everybody can tell. In fact, I think one of the big myths is that, I think some people think they're getting away with it. Again, I think some of Bendis's time when he was on the Superman books and 18 other books, now I'm like that Black Label editor. I've got reminders going off in stereo. These things happen. Anyway, what about you? Can you tell when somebody's just lost their inspiration, they're not into it? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe you could say this video. Maybe you could say me. That's fair. That's fair. Thanks for listening.